Hi, Will. Good to talk to you. Thanks for joining us on the programme this morning. Your reaction to the report?
Yeah, morning, Kay. Look, honestly, I feel pretty depressed this morning. It's a sad day. I'm joining you from Athens, where I'm working this morning. I flew in last night and I had breakfast an hour ago overlooking the Acropolis. This is where democracy was born, and the UK prides itself on exporting democracy around the world. But I just think it's a bad day for democracy. I think the detail of this report is absolutely appalling. The partying, people vomiting on the walls. There was even a fracas, some sort of fight at the height of lockdown. And this is at the heart of the government of our country. And I think, brutally speaking, it's a bit of a frat party. And I think it's bad enough happening inside Number 10 outside of the pandemic, let alone during it. And I think ultimately the Prime Minister has to bear responsibility for that. And look, when this first broke, I said to you at the very beginning of this that Boris sets the tone. He loves to be loved. He loves to run a relaxed show. And unfortunately, I think that this is the result. And I'll give you one example. Martin Reynolds, who your viewers will probably know now, Party Marty, he's the guy that we now understand sent the email that said, I think we've gotten away with it, Boris's principal private secretary. I know Martin. He's a lovely guy. He's very, very capable. But you have to ask, why was he enabling all this to happen? He's the Prime Minister's office gatekeeper. He's not some detached civil servant. This guy was handpicked by Boris at the time, plucked from an ambassadorial job in Libya. They'd worked together at the Foreign Office. The idea that this was all happening in some parallel universe seems to me nonsense. And I think overridingly, what worried me yesterday is that, Boris reiterated that he took personal responsibility, that he was humbled and he was sorry. And in a sense, he absolutely is. But what worried me was that at every opportunity, he seemed to minimize that. He emphasized how brief his visits to the parties were. He defended his own actions. And what was extraordinary is he said when it came to thanking staff at a gathering which someone was fined for and therefore was illegal, he didn't think he'd done anything wrong, and actually he'd do it again. And I think what worries me about that is that it makes the whole apology seem somewhat irrelevant, like he's some sort of toddler who's been forced into an apology. He gets caught and he runs off protesting the unfairness of it all. Where I would disagree with, say, Chris Bryant, who you had on a few minutes ago, is that I've known Boris for a long time, he will be genuinely shocked and sorry about the rudeness towards cleaning and security staff. So what Steve Barclay says is absolutely true. That's not his bag at all. He would have been genuinely appalled. But I think there's a problem here. I think the rest of it, unlike a lot of people, he doesn't see this as the big deal that people are making out. And I think the question we have to ask ourselves is why he thinks that.
Do you think he knew what was going on?
No, not. I don't think there's anything deliberate here. I mean, I think you'd have to be fairly blind not to notice, music pumping out in the middle of the night, or people going on longer, or frankly, bottles strewn everywhere or vomit on the walls. On the other hand, he's running a country during a pandemic. And I think that's the problem. My feeling from reading the report yesterday and, listening to the whistleblowers who were on the BBC's Panorama programme the other night is that Downing Street, unlike the rest of the country, was a bubble of normality. There was no sign whatsoever that any of the changes that were made to the rest of the country were made inside Downing Street. And I think this is clearly why the partying, the sort of wine time Fridays at 4 p.m, didn't raise any eyebrows, because everything else was carrying on as normal. No restrictions, no distancing in office life. So when the workday ended, life carried on as normal. No one else was having leaving parties because no one else was in a normal working environment around the country. And honestly, Kay, I cannot fathom why Downing Street didn't put in best practice from the off. Screens, one-way corridors, essential staff only. Of course they're responding to a pandemic, but why did the Prime Minister and his senior staff not say, I want the 30 most senior people in this building in every day. Everyone else works remotely. And leadership is about setting responsibility, setting the tone. And I don't think Boris did in that sense. And yesterday, what worried me was that Boris seemed to admit that a leaving party was a normal and nice thing to do. It was leadership. But in a world where everybody at that time was cancelling weddings, funerals, christenings, not visiting dying relatives, not having a leaving party seems to me a pretty basic sacrifice to make. And I think he genuinely considered Downing Street to be an exception to the rule. rules. He and others didn't do anything wrong because they were in a very specific, very high-pressured situation. But so were NHS doctors saving lives. And if they had partied with people from outside Number 10, they would have known it was wrong. But within the building, they were all working together, so therefore the rules weren't the same. And I think he probably genuinely believes that. And hence those who think otherwise are political opportunists, or they're just being like massively over the top. So when it comes to resignation, why would he consider resigning when he doesn't really think that he's done anything fundamentally wrong?
Well, we're out of time. Eloquently put, as always. Great to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kay. Take care.